At this time, I'd like to call the meeting to order. Matt, have you taken attendance?
Yep, I've got everyone checked in.
Excellent. Oh. We ask that guest attendees who would like to address the board, please, oh, I'm sorry, I apologize, guys, I was reading the wrong thing. Appleton Public Montessori seeks to nurture the full potential of every child through the presence of the Montessori philosophy in all learning environments, encouraging intrinsic motivation and instilling a level of learning now and for a lifetime. At this point, I'll ask for universal consent of the meeting minutes from last meeting. Hearing no objections, the meeting minutes are approved. I'll ask for a universal consent of approval of today's meeting agenda. Hearing no objections, today's agenda is approved. Matt, do we have any guest speakers today?
Nope, I wasn't notified of any.
Excellent. Okay. At this point, I see the floor to Cassie for the administrator's report.
Thank you. So we're going to start with the A.P.M.A scorecard. If everyone could mute, that would be wonderful. So just a little bit of background on this. This is something that the other schools in Appleton began utilizing a couple years ago.
Purple thing. Man's had it in his mouth. Put it in your room.
And what I want to point out to you is that there's 4 key pillars in the scorecard. And part of the reason why the district decided to do the pillars is so that we could So the 4 key pillars, part of the reason why the district decided to do the 4 key pillars is so that we could, speak the same language and talk about the same thing. And also those 4 things were decided they were important to move students and for student success. So the pillars across the top are universal across our district, as well as the descriptor. And then this was our first year with it. So given kind of the unique circumstance of the year, I would like to see some of it more aligned with Montessori education and make sure we have that coming through. This year, in all transparency, it's pretty generic in my mind, just kind of getting some practice with it. But I wanted to show it to you and show it to our community and get some feedback or questions. So essentially the first pillar talks about engagement. As you can see, the second pillar is where you're going to see kind of those goals related to testing. The third pillar is that family and community partnership, which we always want to be very solid at A.P.M. And then the operational excellence is, just making sure that we're using our resources in a way that's going to help impact student achievement. So I guess at this time, I'll take any questions, feedback, comments, things you notice or wonder about.
Cassie, I just really want to say that I thank you for, I think, recognizing, and I see this too, that this was a really challenging year and that you're rolling it out in this year, and that next year you're looking to put the Montessori pedagogy and the systems that we have at A.P.M. in this document. I think that's what I saw myself, was that it was, it didn't reflect some of our educational values. And so I think, thank you for sharing that, and that's something that you're looking at. I do think that it also, however, also aligns with our charter that we just renewed really well, where, you and steering and the board from last year looked a lot at that charter document and how we could make our goals specific and something that we could really work towards. So I do think that that part is really well in alignment. And so now I think you're right. The next step is to make sure that our Montessori mission is in this document. So thank you.
One of the big rocks for our district was in the first pillar under OSS suspensions for Black and African American students. So I actually talked a lot with our leadership team because we have no data here, and we talked about what kind of goal do we create then with, and not just create a goal to create a goal. So at this point, we left it as, you know, not currently having enough historical data. And part of that also has to do with the way we've been tracking data at A.P.M. So we are putting in the behavior incident report that you can see in that pillar that we are just learning about and just getting practice with. But the real conversation is about how are we making sure that we can respond and be culturally and linguistically responsive to all students. So I just wanted to point that out as well.
Any further discussion on the A.P.M. scorecard?
Great. Well, then I have some exciting opportunities for everyone, and that's the golf. What is it called? It's called the AEF Golf Knowledge Open. Anyway, this actually is a really fun event, and you get a group together to play golf, and you say you're there to represent A.P.M. and we get money. It's wonderful. So I just wanted to put this out there to the community. If anybody's interested, we'd love to have 1 team or 5 teams representing A.P.M. And what they do is you golf some and you answer some kind of random trivia questions. And anyway, just wanted to put it out there as a nice fundraiser that's already kind of set up for us. So, and that's all I have. Thank you.
Well, if the trivia questions are about Star Trek, then Matt should sign up.
Where can you find that link? Is that in our, is that like in a APM? I guess I could just copy and paste it. Never mind.
Yeah, or I'll put it in the family update too. And you don't have to have any experience with playing golf. So it's very friendly.
Thank you, Cassie. At this point, we'll move on to discussion items and the handbook for voting. And I'd like to cede the floor to Stephanie as Stephanie walks us through the changes that have been made by the handbook committee.
Okay, is everyone seeing this in front of them? Yes, okay. All right, so we are not going to go through the whole handbook tonight because some parts of it are the same document. And so we're really only highlighting the additions. And I do want to make sure it's very clear that this is our discussion component so that we can then submit it to the board for vote in the May meeting. And that will be done with the new May board. So they will also have time to review it as well. But this is the discussion component. I just wanted to highlight a few of the additions that seem really important. We recognize that there were several words throughout the document that really required definitions. So oversight, non-sibling children, and instrumentality seemed key to us to define. The images are held in some other world. I can't get to them, so we're refining the images. If you have good graphic art design background, raise your hand and I'll call you to make these images again, just so that they reflect our structure in a visual way. We usually have these up on the website, so it is something that we're trying to do. Let's see, there was not big changes here. The lottery looks like it was all changed, but this was actually changed from last year's board vote. So nothing has changed about our lottery process. It was just brought into the document to reflect that already voted on process. So I won't go through that. We did go through as a handbook task committee, and we just went through the board and member responsibilities. So there were slight changes in there. Hopefully you've had some time to look at that. But we just kind of refined some of the definitions of what the board responsibilities about the board was supposed to do. And I think you can see those changes pretty easily. They've all been marked in your things. The bylaws will be submitted as part of the handbook. They were voted on last year. Every single bylaw was reviewed by the board last year. This is something that we felt was has been a blank in the handbook since 2015. And it's really thinking about the roles between AASD, the governing board, the administrator, and staff. So we spent a significant amount of time really clearly defining what it means to have a responsibility for planning and what that looks like across all of the different pieces that may interact with the board, recognizing that the board and the administrator and staff and AASD all work together, but also have separate responsibilities that they do to make the school run. So that's been, I think, clearly identified. In particular, the administrator and staff were very blank in our old handbook. So that has been added. We really looked at board accountability in this document, and we really thought about how we could support our board by recognizing that good communication and participation is a responsibility of the board to make sure that it's running itself well. So that's what that is in there, and it was an addition that was in there. Let's see. I'll stop there because I've gone through like a couple sections. So I'm happy to, and I just wanted to say Sarah Scanlon and Dan Skripczak and Cassie Gilbo all reviewed the document as part of the task committee. So if you have any questions, I think all four of us are happy to answer questions. I'm not seeing any hands raised. So those changes must make sense. This is again another image that needs to be kind of refined. We've had as a goal to have an advisory council as a part of this board since 2018, but we made the decision that we wouldn't have anything in this document that hadn't been actually completed, so that our handbook represented our present moment, and that would leave space for future iterations to be added as necessary. We did spend a lot of time recognizing that the handbook should provide some level of detail that the bylaws do not provide at this time. So bylaws are your overarching rule, and the handbook provides the interpretation of the board's inaction of those rules. And so we had a little bit here, it was called conducting governing board business, but we didn't have anything in our handbook fleshed out about how to run meetings, how to support volunteer missions. And so we spent a lot of time thinking about that. We added meeting protocols as its own section in the board because we really wanted to have the handbook say, like, what is the purpose of a board meeting and how should board meetings work? So we added components about what a working committee meeting is, which we were able to implement this year, really to a lot of success, I think, where we had board meetings that were specifically meant to have committees work together and communicate between one another. And I really do feel like we had some success in that. And so it's important to kind of reflect something that's really working well in the handbook for future boards to look at. We looked at public voice at meetings, recognizing that hearing from our community and making sure that our community can participate in board meetings is a high priority, and it's a necessary priority for our board. And then we also added a component on virtual meeting protocols, recognizing that we really had nothing before this year on how to run a virtual meeting, best practices in virtual meetings. Really, in August and September, we were kind of creating this as we were moving through it. And I'm sure we've made some mistakes, and I'm sure things could have moved more smoothly. And so hopefully this will help future boards if they ever have to move to an all virtual year. May they not have to do that. But we did think about that. One thing that we thought about was that the technology required for a board to do live meetings, recorded meetings, and open public meetings is actually really challenging and inefficient. Sarah and I both reached out to to our AASD contacts, as well as the DPI charter board contacts. And really, there's not a lot of support for providing small charters with their own Zoom account, which is pricey. You have to pay monthly for that. Google, it has its own kind of bulky kind of thing that has, it's just kind of bulky. But it's free. And so we really looked at the inefficiency of having to do this in a virtual meeting. So we discussed that we would suggest in this handbook that live feeds of meetings will no longer be used for virtual meetings. It does take 2 full computers and a pro Zoom account for me to do this and make them live and public at the same time. And so it's really an inefficient use of probably funds and technology. And it really requires a lot of the president to make it happen every month. So that's why we decided that. I'm happy to talk more about that. Sarah and I also talked about whether or not the meeting will be recorded later. And I think that's something that the board can discuss. Sarah checked today, and it's not required that boards record their meetings for future viewing. It is required that the public have a public link to a virtual meeting, but you don't have to record them later on. So I think I'll pause at that, because those are the meeting protocols, and that was a kind of a heavy bout of information. So I'm opening to questions. And I guess I should say, I haven't minded doing the work to make it live and to record it. But the only reason I was able to do it is because professionally, I have the access to do it. And it's really not fair for us to require whoever is in a leadership position of the school to have all of that, because it really is a privilege to have all of that technology. And so that's why I'm saying it. I haven't minded doing it. I've learned a lot, actually, but it is a lot to take on. Am I seeing any questions?
Stephanie, I'll chime in.
Yeah.
If we don't have any other questions, just given the information that, like you said, I found out today about not needing to record the meetings. I do think the board should reconsider the statement that says we will record the meetings, like for the exact reasons that you said. That it doesn't, it's not equal across the board. Those technologies are a privilege. Not everyone has them. And if we were having the meetings in person, we would likely not be recording them. So it begs the question as to whether or not we would continue to be able to do so in person. And I know that was new information, which is part of why we're just going through this now.
I'm sorry. Do we need someone to bring that and can we change that before it comes to the board for in May, where we remove the recorded piece and then vote on it as with that removed? And if somebody feels strongly that it should still be in there, they can make an amendment to the motion to add it back in, or how is that going to work?
I think technically this is the document that we're bringing forward, so we would technically have to remove it at the next meeting.
So we could make an amendment at the next meeting to alter that.
Yeah.
I can, there are some easier ways to do the recording. So if it's something that we're interested in doing, we can talk about that. I mean, you have someone coming, I mean, I've been in IT for a long time and I'm coming on as secretary, or at least I think I am still. I'm more than willing to help out with that stuff if it's something that we need to do or just want to do as a nice thing for public viewing or whatever. So just putting it out there.
Yeah, I'd say it's not necessarily, I think it's good to not have it required in the document because we don't know who will be on the board in the future and what skill sets or access we'll have. But Ben, I agree that if we can make it available, then let's make it available. If we can make it, record it because you've got that skill set, then yeah, like I think that's a great idea. But if in the future there's a board, not a board with those skills or the technology or whatnot, then this allows for that to happen. Does that make sense?
Yeah, I totally agree with that. It should just be an optional thing and just provide it if you can. I totally agree with that. Yeah.
Yeah, maybe changing the wording to if the board has the capacity for recording for later viewing rather than it is required.
Okay. We could easily say the meeting may be recorded if that would be a pretty easy change. So we'll just mark that and make sure that we, if you have, you go and talk to people about how they've used the recordings and things like that. Like this is part of why we have a discussion, is to think about these issues that, when we look at the whole document, we reflect and think once more again. We also thought that something that was lacking in this document was the chair and co-chair communication protocols. And specifically, this comes about when we think about the fact that the board members each have their own email, but we really have that email set up as a committee chair email and not a personal email for that board member. And so we really wanted to kind of flesh out what that looked like, and to also support the committee chair in knowing what their responsibilities are in terms of communicating back to the public. So we really thought that it was important that we outline some of these key responsibilities of the committee chair and how the committee chair and the co-chair could work together, just to make their relationship also work really well. And so we wanted a monthly update to make sure that all members of the committee knew what was going on, that the chair and co-chair really share the official board email account for that committee, and then should have a designated person who responds on behalf of the committee. And then the other things that we wanted to talk about were the fact that board documents, which are stored in our Google Docs system, really should be only stored in the committee board doc system so that we have continuity across committees every single year. So it's really difficult if, if I've created everything from my personal Gmail account and then Sarah takes over as president and she doesn't have access to all of those documents, it makes transitions more difficult and there can be repeats and missing and gaps in information. And it doesn't make our records complete. And we really aim as a board to have complete records so that we can return to those as we think about different aspects of what the board needs to think about, as we change rules and handbooks and we go back and, do charter renewals and things like that. And so we really wanted to talk about how that transfer might work. And it works best if everything is done under the committee board doc system. And then the other thing that's really important is that board members keep their current email account as a board email account and don't create new ones, so that we don't have all these board emails out there that, again, don't transfer well as we move from board to board each year. Questions about that piece? Because it's a brand new section in the handbook as well. Okay, And then finally, communication protocols. We really did think that this needed fleshing out. Our bylaws state that we have to follow open laws, public meeting laws in the state of Wisconsin, but they really don't flesh out the detail of what that is. And so that's what the communication protocol section is, which is that basically it fleshes out public meeting laws. Board members should refrain from significant conversations about board concerns or questions over email, phone, in-person meetings, social media, or virtual meeting platforms with other board members in large groups. Board members should consider that they are ambassadors and public-facing persons of the school community when on social media or other public platforms. Committees should and can organize, plan, and facilitate events, activities, and resources once they are voted on as part of the strategic plan for the year. So I wanted to clarify this part because I do think it's important to note that our committees are often working on things that are already approved on by the board, and they should be able to run with those and move with those as a committee. And so we really wanted to put that in the handbook so that committees could take on that responsibility and feel free to do that. With that being said, all committee meetings must be open to the public. And again, all committees must keep record and documentation of their meetings and their plans, right? So it just kind of outlines the details of what it means to be a public entity and also continue your work. Any questions on that?
Yeah, I have a question. Can you kind of clarify that first one? Just when I'm like listening to or reading it. So where do you have those conversations? Is it in the board meeting itself, or am I just not?
Yes.
Okay.
So open meeting laws basically state that if you are a group of board members, especially if you are a quorum of board members, so that you're a voting block of board members, you can't have a conversation about something that the board is voting on or considering unless your public is invited. So like 7 of us couldn't gather at a parking lot and talk about the new board slate, because that wouldn't be a public meeting because not everybody was invited to the parking lot to have that conversation. So it's really to make sure that your public and your board can communicate together openly about matters that are under discussion or under vote.
Okay, so it's more specifically related to something that's going to be up for a vote? Correct,
or under discussion. So and that's why this is so important. This section was so important because, for instance, now I'm blanking on anything that we've approved, but I'm so sorry. But like we've approved facilities to redecorate and redesign the entryway to the school, right? And so Paige, as chair of the facilities committee, she already has the approval. That's already been said. The board has said Paige and the committee have the approval to do that. So she can really reach out and have conversations about that. She can share designs and paint samples and things like that. And it doesn't have to be done at a board meeting, and she should feel free to do that. And she can do that at a committee meeting freely that people have been invited to. Right. But we couldn't discuss the slate that's up for tonight as a group of us because that hasn't been discussed publicly and voted on publicly. Is that clear?
A little more.
A little more.
I don't know if I'm just not, if I'm thinking too much, like.
Does anybody, do we have a parliamentarian in the house?
I'll help you, don't worry. You're taking over for me, I can help you out.
Okay, thanks.
Oh, okay, Andrea's. Yeah, I don't know. Dan or Cassie, do you have any clearer ways to describe this? Dan, you're usually my go-to person for Robert's Rules of Order, so I was hoping that maybe you had a clear way to define this.
I don't know if I still feel confused a little bit because can you discuss, it feels like it's almost, can you discuss anything? That's where I'm getting caught up, but I'm just probably.
My rule of thumb for myself, I don't know if it's totally accurate, and feel free to correct me if anybody knows different, but the big thing is that you can't have quorum, which means more than 50% of the board in one place talking about a voting item at one time that's not public. So that's kind of the big no-no. And frankly, it's pretty hard to get more than half of the board in one place talking about a board thing at one time when it's not already a board meeting anyway, right? We're usually discussing our kids or whatever. So, but most other stuff, like if you want to talk to a friend on the board and it's like 2 or 3 of you about something like, hey, I don't understand this thing, totally fine. For clarification so that you come into the meeting understanding what's going on. No worries there. So it's actually fairly difficult to do this without intention, unless you all happen to end up, I don't know why we'd all end up in a parking lot, but that's our example that we're running with. Let's say a playground. We're all in a playground and we're like, oh my gosh, we got to talk about like, are we going to approve this money for something? No, can't do that. You're over 50%. But it's pretty difficult. So
that helps. Yes, thank you. Okay.
Yeah, and it's the significant, right? It's that word significant that is important there.
And honestly, when in doubt, pick up the phone. Don't send it in writing. If you're like, I don't know if this was voted on or not, and I don't know if this business has come in front of the board yet. If you don't know, make a phone call
and ask.
And ask. But even if it's a case of, you're going to talk to a handful of people, make separate phone calls, and you're fine.
Okay.
When we get these big email chains going, that has been interpreted in the past as problematic. So.
That's why I only respond to like just the person that sent it. I don't know if that is like the rule, kind of.
Yeah. No email chains, no giant phone conversations, no video calls with groups of people. And this is also, you really should feel like it's also empowering you as a board member to bring something up for discussion at a board meeting and to really voice concerns of the community and questions, right? Because it's an opportunity for you to do that with a group of people. And so it does put responsibility, but it's also an empowering thing because, that's what boards are for. They're supposed to meet and have discussions like we're having a discussion now, right? Like we're having conversations about how we should run and what works well. And we're having that together. And so there's power in that in terms of like making it a good thing. Yeah.
No,
okay.
Thank you. Thank you.
So transfer of committee chair positions. Again, I've talked a little bit about this, but we really didn't have anything about transfer. And that makes it a little bit difficult because people were doing it in different ways. We didn't have anything about this in our handbook and we had nothing about it in our bylaws, right? So we just wanted to kind of say, look, here are their processes for stepping down or moving to another position or, change of committee chair and co-chair. It seems really kind of like, wow, this is really detailed, but we had a couple instances where we've lost passwords because they were never given back. And so then we've lost we've lost documents from an entire year, right? As we tried to figure out where they were and where they were being held. So we just listed out the protocols for transfer of committee chair positions. All right, any questions on those? Okay, I think that'll just make it really nice for the next board, really, to have transfer protocols. And then the last thing is we really, over the past 4 years, I would say, volunteering has really declined. We've had some difficulty filling all of our board roles, and some of our committees are kind of running on fumes at this point because it's only the chair and the committee chair. In terms of, I'll be really honest, our fundraising and resources committee right now is Sarah. So she doesn't even have a co-chair working with her. And so we really did think it was important that in our handbook, we state that volunteering is a virtue. Giving back to our community is a responsibility of everyone in this community. And that doesn't mean that everybody needs to volunteer the same amount of time. It doesn't mean that everybody needs to be a board member. And so it was suggested that we do kind of a 3 for me, that if everyone puts in 3 hours of volunteer service or some sort of equivalent, the committees will be so much stronger for that effort. And we even listed out like volunteering can take place in different ways. So it's not the same, but we really do want to kind of say in our handbook, it is very important that this board runs on volunteer hours. No one here is being paid to be on the board. And in order to do all of the wonderful things that we do as committees and as part of the school, we really do need lots of volunteers to do that work. Are there any questions about that?
I have a question, Stephanie. I think it's great that it's in the board handbook, but how is that communicated to the greater APM community? Because you're kind of speaking to the choir here. I mean, we're obviously all here on our own time volunteering. So how is that going to be communicated to the larger APM community, I guess, or applicants to our school?
Yeah, I think when people are taking tours and talking to me, I think that's something I can start talking about as something that we're highlighting and proud of. And beyond that, I don't know that anyone should be the volunteer police, but I have seen some schools where they kind of highlight, you know, like who's doing what. I don't know. We might need to brainstorm a little bit around that. But I think the first blush will be our new incoming families. And then of course, you know, everybody else through communication from me to the school community.
Yeah. We did talk a little bit about that, Michelle. And that's why we put in this last bit as a first step, so that it would be the board's responsibility to make sure that every member of the community is asked to choose a committee. And like, it's regardless, you just choose a committee to be on. Now, how active you are in that committee, that's up to you, but at least you are choosing to be in that committee. And that means every month you will receive the communication of that committee chair. Every single month you will receive that. And we're hoping that that's a first step because I think one of the reasons why people don't volunteer is because even when people are asking for volunteers, like people like to be really invited in, especially if you're a new family, right? And so I think it's one way to kind of say like, look, you're already in a committee. You don't even have to like, you're in. This is the committee you're in. And then you get to choose how active you're going to be in that committee. And that might take some time, but we're hoping that's a good first step.
Yeah, if I can add to what Stephanie was saying, that was part of our intent of adding that committees should do a monthly update, because then when they get that update, we felt like if you're getting something every month that re-invites you every month, it kind of reminds that volunteer, even if they haven't participated before, look, we're inviting you again. Even though if you missed the first one, that's okay. Here's a second, third, fourth, fifth, sixth chance. Keep coming. That's how we had hoped that would work.
I know too, I remember back when I was new to the school, and I don't remember anything specific, but I remember it being written in multiple places that the expectation for parents were to provide a certain number of hours. And this was a strange year, so obviously not the same, but I remember, you know, when emails went out about needing volunteers or things were posted, there was always a sentence or two about, you know, the expectation is as a parent at A.P.M. that you know, blah, blah, blah. I'm not exactly sure how it was stated, but I just remember it was there frequently.
If I can chime, I think there was more of a culture of volunteering in the past. And when we first joined A.P.M., people were already saying that it was slipping. That was 4 years ago? And that it was kind of slipping away, and there are various reasons to pick up protocol and such. And I know that I've seen some parents saying, man, they're expecting me to volunteer, but I work nights. So what in the world am I supposed to do? So like, we understand, like there are going to be situations where you simply cannot. And I don't think the intention of this is to make people feel guilty for that, but that if you can volunteer for an event, like that would be very helpful, because right now we have sort of this same pool volunteering for everything. So if we can kind of, like you're saying, Michelle, sort of rebuild that culture of volunteering and an expectation where you don't feel like you're cajoled into it, but that you feel good about stepping up and volunteering for the school. I think that's more the intention here.
Right. And what I was referring to was, I mean, it never felt like a threat or somebody was checking up on you to make sure you put in your hours for the year or something like that. It was just kind of that friendly reminder. Remember, that's kind of part of what Montessori is. So.
Oh,
What
Paige, go ahead.
I mean, just a thought, you know, and yes, you don't want to make people feel guilty and, you know, you want people to volunteer. You know, what about like a buyout? If you don't want to do the 3 for Me, you know, you could donate $50 or something like that to the school, or how many, you know, whatever the hourly rate is we want to go. Just a thought, because some people might be too busy. They really want to volunteer, but they've got the money to sort of throw at it. I don't know.
I was just looking on LexisNexis, and there's all sorts of lawsuits around the country for that practice. So for public charters, you can't.
Okay, sorry.
Can't pay to play.
Yeah, I'm a little bit hesitant about anything that looks like, I guess I'm more about always providing carrots rather than sticks as a you know, as a kind of value. But we did put that in there, right? Like, so providing resources and material donations are a way of supporting this school, right? So that's, I think we did put that in there because we did want to recognize that there's a diversity of ways that one can participate in building and supporting the school. But I did think it was important that we clarified that volunteering was a value of the school and the board. Okay, these are just our articles of incorporation in case you're really interested in history. These are job descriptions. Nothing really changed in terms of the job descriptions. We just added some clarification, things that were not really carried out in the details. The handbook had not had anything about the president-elect or the past president. So these had all been voted on when these positions were brought in to the steering committee, but they weren't in our handbook. So they haven't changed. They just are now in the handbook and not just separate voting items from past years. Let me know if I need to stop, because we don't want to read 51 pages verbatim. And then the last document was just the strategic plan. And my suggestion was that we don't really need old strategic plans in there. We just need a link every year to the strategic plan so that people can review it easily. So that was the note there. Conflict of interest and board confidentiality have been in there for a while. And the last page is that acknowledging that you've seen and read the handbook as a board member, which should really go out every year so that board members really know what their responsibilities are and can refer to this. And this is also would be and is a public document that could be easily shared. All right, any questions on the entire thing? Any more additions or something that is missing? Okay, seeing none, I think the discussion is closed, Sarah. So what's up next? Now I'm
Next, we're going to move on to voting items. I believe that the community committee is recommending that a Discord account be used to coordinate communication between parents. I believe I can cede the floor to community.
Yes, thank you. So the things that we were just addressing as far as having a Possible place for board meetings. That's something we could talk about, try out. Ben is the expert in Discord, so he could show us exactly how to do that. Also, when you come to, if we have people that want to, or have people that say, I want to be part of the community committee or facilities committee or whatever, we have a spot in Discord for all those committees. So whoever the chair is, can actually put their updates in Discord and email too. So that's just another place that people in that committee can communicate. So I just see when we're talking about different things here, I'm like, Discord can fix that. Discord's good. We got that. So any handbook, we have a list of links that people can easily access. The handbook and lunch menu and all this other stuff. So if you're not on that, you need to get on that so you can check it out. But yeah, it's so far so good. Go ahead.
Go ahead and just make a motion and then just so that we're sticking to the right
I know.
corner.
I just wanted to say that it's going to work out really well. Okay. All right. So I make a motion for the Discord account to be used to coordinate parent communication and board communication.
Do we have a second?
I second it.
And so now it's open for discussion. So
No.
Andrea, I didn't mean to cut you off.
I don't know.
Sorry, guys, I'm new to this. That's my fault, Andrea. I apologize.
Okay,
I'm
I'm not
still learning.
president. I don't know what's going on with that. So anyways, that's what I said. There's your discussion. Any comments at all? If anybody's been on there, I know a couple of you guys are.
Yeah, I plunked around a little bit, and at first it looked a little almost kind of old school messenger board, and I thought it was going to be clunky. But the more, like any new software or platform or whatever, it became pretty intuitive pretty quickly for me. So at first I was a lot more comfortable with the other one. It feels like Facebook, it looks like Facebook, it's something I've been on. But it seems like it has a lot more tools. Like I noticed there's a video, doesn't it have a video meeting like built right into it that we could potentially use? I don't know if that would actually work. Ben would probably be able to, but it looked really cool and was relatively easy to use. And I get the notifications emailed to me, so I don't have to be checking it all the time. I know when something comes up where I've been paying attention. So it looks good to me.
I do have a question for you guys regarding the use of that platform and whether or not it would meet our public open rule requirements. Is anyone able to just hop on without having an account? Or is it a required, do you have to have an account to hop on the meeting if I have a live stream going, for example?
Yeah, you'd have to be a part of the server. So you'd have to have the account. So Ben, could you tell us, do you know if we can record that or what?
Yeah, you can record anything. There's no problem with the recording parts. Honestly, you just got to tell me what the requirements are and I can figure it out.
So
you just tell
anybody
me
needs
what
to be able to just drop in. Anyone just needs to be able to hop in. They
Yep.
can't have an account,
You
for example.
can make public channels. And the same thing with Zoom. Like, you can open Zoom up in a web browser. You can open up Discord in a web browser. You technically need to have at least a name to type into the box when you do like Discord as a guest. Discord as a guest is not something you can do on a phone, which I think is the same for Zoom. Like, you have to have the Zoom app installed if you want to use Zoom. So the possibility is there. I don't know if I would recommend it for public stuff if we want to keep it, because we kind of want to keep this as the community for parents. And if we want to muck it up with public stuff, I don't know. I don't know what people think about that. So you may want to keep public stuff on a public side where it doesn't touch, where parents are gathering to talk about school related events and all that stuff. So I don't know.
Yeah, I think my understanding was that this would be a really good platform to make sure that parents could connect, like as a group, that in a classroom, they could arrange like an after school play group for the 4Kers in Children's House who all get picked up at 12 o'clock, right? Like, so it would be a social platform, and it's may not be the best idea. I think you're right, Ben, like to not, because then you do have the questions about open meeting laws, right? Like then it is easy to tie those things together, and it may not be the best thing to do with that. It is a place in which you can quickly announce things, right? And you can announce events that the board is planning and things like that. But my understanding was that it was a more geared towards social connection and informational connection. And I think for that, it works really well and looks really, and it's something that the community, I think, could use. So.
Thank you for clarifying.
Yeah, we'll have to play with the meeting settings of it, but we'll figure that out.
Baby steps. Start as a social, just a social platform for parents. And if you want to take it further, you can go baby steps.
Anything else? Okay.
If there's no further questions or discussion, can open it up for a vote. Stephanie, help me out here. Do I go down the roster?
Yes, and just note that right, so like we have a couple co-chairs that are voting as the voting member for the committee. So.
Okay.
Matt might be the best person to roll call your vote for you, actually, at this point. I'm throwing that at him, but he has the attendance list. So
yes, I'll let ask Matt to open up the roll vote then.
Oh no. Okay. I will do my best, and Stephanie, just yell at me if I mess it up. Okay, so I am a yes vote. Let's see. Sarah as resources.
Yes.
Stephanie as president.
Yes.
Andrea?
Yes.
Paige?
Yes.
Heather?
Yes.
Dan?
Yes.
Kayla?
Yes.
Derek?
Yes.
Oh, the names are moving around on me. Michelle?
Yes.
Nope. Not voting. I think that's everybody.
Yeah, and so Heather's vote, Heather did not need to vote because Kayla is the chair. That's okay.
Thank you.
Don't worry about it.
Sorry, guys. I'll get it in a couple more meetings, I promise.
Well, all the names are going to change on you anyway, Sarah. So. All right. So the motion passes.
Okay, motion passes, and we can move. Do we have a, what is the word, Stephanie? Do we have a motion to?
Yeah, I motion to move the 2021-2022 A.P.M. board slate forward.
Do we have a second? Paige? Thank you, Paige. The floor is open for discussion.
Call for unanimous consent.
Okay, I call for unanimous consent of the 2021-2022 A.P.M. board slate. Do I have any objections?
Yes.
Okay.
I won't be the E&E co-chair anymore.
Okay.
I answered the survey earlier in the year, sadly.
No worries, Heather, okay? Thank you so much. You've done so much for this school. I have to say, like, you have been on this board for quite a while, and you have put in your volunteer time. So my thanks to you.
Thank you.
All right, so we have an amendment that there will be an opening for the E&E co-chair.
I make a motion that, well, no, you made a motion
I
to
made a
add the
motion.
amendment. I'll
So-
second it.
Thank you.
I'll call for unanimous consent of the amendment. Are there any objections? Hearing none, the amendment carries. Opening it back up for discussion of the 2021-2022 A.P.M. board slate. Hearing no discussion or questions, I call for unanimous consent. Do we have any objections? Hearing none, the unanimous consent carries. The 2021-2022 board slate passes.
Yeah. Welcome new board members. Thank you so much, and welcome those who are returning in new and similar positions. Thank you so much. Okay.
At this time, we'll move on to steering committee updates. I'll cede the floor to Stephanie for the president's report. Thank you, Stephanie.
Thank you. Okay, so I just wanted to let everyone know that one of the last duties of the outgoing president, and actually when they stay the president, is to hold an end of the year parent chat that invites the new parents and new families to meet the new board and the outgoing board and to give our thanks to the outgoing board. We were unfortunately unable to hold this event at all last year. We will be holding this event this year. We will be holding it virtually, and I'm working with the committee, the community committee, to make it a fun social gathering where the new board members are introduced to our community and we can invite our new families to join us. I'm also working with Corinna Albright and Rachel Stutzman, our art and music teachers. I will be putting a call out to our community to share any art and music, whether it was created for a class or not this year, to celebrate our music makers and our art makers, our children this year who have been creative and during the midst of all of this complication. And I just wanted to give a chance for us as a community to celebrate their creative spirit, and also to have new families and old families kind of interact in some way. So we'll be working on that. If you have any ideas or thoughts, please let me know. I think it'll be held the second to last week, Friday. I'm working on exact date and time. Hopefully people can join as it will be through some sort of virtual platform. And the last thing I had an update on is you can see in our board slate, we do have several openings. In particular, we are looking for a resources chair and we have multiple co-chair positions. So if you have community members that you know that are interested in possibly serving on the board, please let me or Sarah know, and we'd be happy to welcome them and tell them all about the marvelous things that we do. That's it for me. Derek.
Thanks, Stephanie. So for myself tonight, talking about the marketing task force, and first, I guess I'll back up just a little bit from our last meeting, where regarding the potential messaging of looking at doing this marketing campaign just to gain diversity, to only look to expand. I kind of was a little bit more direct and to the point because those of us who have been around for a while know the battle that we fought with AASD and what true diversity is. We did that when we were looking to potentially expand, and that was done by some really great work that past president put a lot of stuff together. But that being said, I know that A.P.M. takes diversity very seriously and appropriately, and that's reflected in our values that we have as a Montessori school, as well as the creation of the diversity committee. So I thought that I would back up a little bit because there are a lot of the new board members on that might not know why did we start this marketing task force. Last year, AASD canceled the charter school fair. And that was where we participated, here in Appleton, where we got to meet a lot of new potential families. So, we had concerns with, all right, well, how are we going to go ahead and reach those students? I was at a charter council meeting last year, and a lot of the other schools were really concerned with what the online application looked like. Where did a radio button go? How was certain things worded on this online application if people have to go out online? I was more concerned with, well, how are we going to reach these new students, that are out there? Or if they proactively seek us online, what is their experience going to be like? I had a little bit of a different mindset than some of the others at that charter council meeting. So I came back and we talked about that, and we did some self-reflection and took a look at what we had, and we found that the video, the web, the print material was lacking or outdated. So really our options were, we could do nothing. We could do it in-house. The video, our current video was done in-house, or have someone professionally do it. Thankfully, the one that we had done in-house, the person happened to be also a professional at that. But, we had concerns with each one of those, right? You do nothing. That is a concern because, again, how are we going to reach those students if there wasn't that charter fair that was out there? Or now we're starting to see, geez, Swamico has a public Montessori school that's going in, and they're already beyond, I think, their capacity. So much like us, right, they're going to have this wait list. But if other school districts start to see the value behind Montessori, and not only the need, but the want of the community to have some, that type of teaching for their kids, other districts may look to try to find and adapt to that, which then, I always try to think of a problem before it's actually an issue right now. I'd like to try to be more forward thinking. So again, I think there's risks with doing nothing in-house. That's a lot to go ahead and ask of anyone to do that type of thing. So I was, said, okay, well, let's take a look and try to go out professionally and try to find somebody to help with that. So we could look for professionals in video, we could look for professionals in print, but then I started thinking, all right, what if we were to do, an all-in-one, have somebody that can be able to help on all facets. And then I started thinking, okay, well, my big concern with that is going to be cost. So what if we were to find more of an advertising and PR firm that can also help with large event fundraising to help pay for that? Okay, what if they also had grant writing experience, again, to help pay for that cost? So then the ball started rolling from that standpoint. And that's where we started to look at professionals outside. Now it's even led into a further secondary benefit where I'm like, okay, well, geez, now if we can do this large event fundraising, grant writing, we're doing updating potential video and print. Well, could we maybe now do some targeted marketing to look to gain the diversity that, we know that those kids would absolutely benefit from Montessori education, but it could potentially provide, if we're ever looking for expansion, provide for that. This marketing task force was not designed as expansion as our goal. This marketing task force was designed because we're like, oh, our video is really dated. And what do we do? But it's kind of snowballed into, well, how much more bang for our buck? How much additional benefit can we get for doing something like this? So that's a little bit of, I guess, the background there. Now, the other thing was, if we go down this road, I didn't want to make the decision with current board and have the new board have to fulfill our commitments. So what I suggested at the last steering committee was that we postpone any vote of the task force. And even though that this would be my last board meeting as vice president, that I would come back and represent the task force the next meeting. And at that time, we would present to the new board. We would have who we've narrowed down from that PR standpoint, come on and do their presentation. Then we would give the task force recommendation. And then at that point, you guys can go ahead and digest that information and see if that's something that this new board wants to go ahead and tackle going forward. But I just wanted to kind of clear the air, because I know I kind of just jumped right to the point as the secondary benefit. So now hopefully that provides a little bit more clarity as far as the why behind what we're doing.
Thank you, Derek. Any clarification questions for Derek? So he will be bringing that to the May meeting as a guest, as the task force head to the May meeting.
I have a question as far as with the marketing piece of it. What if we do nothing? What is the overall concern? I mean, I understand our video is outdated or whatever, but I know that we always have more applications than spots. So that's where if we're looking purely at a marketing situation, is are we afraid because there's other public Montessori schools opening up that we're going to lose? We're not going to have enough applications to fill spots? Do we feel like we're not going to have that where we have a lot more applications than spots, or what? That's where my confusion is what is the concern there?
So that would be, yeah, absolutely. One of the concerns is that when let's say do a SWOT analysis, one of the threats out there would be potential competition with not only other charters, but then now other public Montessoris in our area. And if you, like I said, if you continue to see the success, not only that we have right now, but then now Green Bay School District, right? If they see the success in the wait list there, now other school districts are, I think, obviously going to take note of that and maybe look to capitalize on that. Like, wow, okay, this is really working, especially when, right now we're pulling outside dollars in from other school districts, that we have parents that drive and seek us outside of the district itself. Well, what happens, if that happens too much, right? Because now if Green Bay has one, and then now Ashwaubenon or De Pere are losing students that direction, right? More districts may go ahead and develop that. And if you're slow to the game to look to do something like this, then it might already be, potentially too late. And something that was a luxury of a deep waiting list now dries up. Plus, if we take a look at well, how can we go ahead and pay for that? Well, if you have somebody that can be able to step in to look at that grant writing capability, to look at actually doing large event fundraising, when we take a look at, well, how much do we bring in? We're like, oh, hey, Paint the Plank does fantastic, right? And we might bring in $1,000 or $2,000 maybe, right? Versus, I've gone to golf outings and we've raised $150,000 in one golf outing, right? So, well, how do we do? Not that we would have something like that, right, for A.P.M.A, but how do we think a little bit larger to maybe gain those additional dollars, or be able to raise funds beyond not only the marketing need, at that time, but then like our outdoor education center. I always like to try to think bigger from that standpoint. I'm like, well, geez, man, I'm trying to contact right now, a large home improvement store that I have a personal connection with the secretary of the CEO, to try to have them help fund, a really large, expansive outdoor education center, rather than just, throw something up. But you need fundraising or grant writing experience or something like that to help pay for that. And if you can find somebody to do both, I think that, to me, that is key.
I might also add that I've now gone to the charter fair a couple of years in a row, and it's really helpful if you have updated educational documents and videos to share what the difference is between A.P.M. and other charter schools in the district. Because what we get a lot, and I'll be really honest, I've been to the charter fairs, and a lot of parents throw their hat into every charter school. And then maybe they get into APM, but they've never done a visit, or they don't know what Montessori education is, or right. And so the better video, like the better materials that we can have to have these conversations as people are applying, helps parents when they enter the school, as well. And I know that as parents, it can take a few years to understand the Montessori pedagogy. And I think that's something that I've heard from the administrators and the staff members, that parent education is something that we can do as a board. And it is one of our responsibilities, is to think about what kind of parent education we do, not only about our board work, but also about the pedagogy and the mission of the school. And so our materials are from a couple of years ago. And so we may need to think about how we're doing that component of that, and whether or not videos and print materials might be a part of that work.
And we're seeing that as all part of a bigger marketing plan. Is that what I'm hearing?
Correct. So the firm that will be presenting actually had like 6 different phases that they would look at. The first obviously would just be this consulting phase where they would come into the new board, kind of have a workshop, understand what you guys are looking to go ahead and accomplish out of this, what the needs of A.P.M. are, and then once you have the vision as far as where we want to go, how we want to do it, they're going to come in and say, okay, I guess build the marketing plan around that, and they've already identified everything from web design, video, social media, print material, the large event fundraising, and they've stack ranked them in their order. But one of the things is that with the new board, right, when they go ahead and present, it's a la carte. Obviously, I would start with, and the recommendation is absolutely start with the consultation, have them come in, understand that, and there's a cost for that. But then you guys can then say, okay, well, what do we think is a priority? Oh, web design, we get that for free from AASD. It is what it is, but it's free. Let's take that out of there. You might say, yeah, the video is old and needs to be updated. We're going to put that, stack rank that, the next thing to go ahead and do. Whatever you guys go ahead and decide, you can go ahead and rank those items in whatever you feel appropriate.
And then my understanding as well is that our past president, Nicole, had put together, and I haven't looked at it, I understand that it's available, I believe, in Google Docs or something, but she has some presentation or background stuff that she had done previously that's available. Has that been looked at? Is there stuff in there that has already been done, or that any marketing people could take a look at and use for
that? Really wasn't, let's say, from a marketing standpoint. That was when they were looking for expansion, looking to try to gain, because one of our issues with, I guess, expansion would be that AASD doesn't say we're diverse enough. And AASD, in my opinion, has a very narrow scope of what they consider diversity to be. Right. Their true measure of diversity is free and reduced school lunch. That's it. So that to me isn't diverse. I think A.P.M. and our values show that we believe in diversity, but they only have one target. So really we have 2 options. If we're ever going to go down that road, it's either going to be change AASD's mind on what diversity is and see if what we're doing counts, right? Or you take their current rules and you play by them, and then you try to figure out, okay, do we do targeted marketing into those areas to try to gain those students, which will then gain us, the potential to expand, which might gain us busing, right? All those other. But she was solely looking at, not from a marketing standpoint, she was going for the district from an expansion school busing standpoint.
Okay. Yeah, and that was the other part of my, I had sent some emails about with some questions about the whole diversity thing, because I think when I first came onto the committee years ago, that discussion was kind of coming to an end, because that was the definition is free and reduced lunch. A lot of those families are going to need transportation. We don't have busing. We can't get busing unless we have enough people who take free and reduced lunch who can't get to our school. It was just a catch-22. And I am cautious about having a marketing plan. And it doesn't sound like that's the only group that's being targeted for a marketing plan, which I wasn't clear on previously, but I have a concern with marketing to that group when we don't have the resources that those families need to come to our school, the big ones being busing and before and after school programming. So I that was where my question was really coming from, is we're investing a lot of money. We already have more applications than we have spots. And if we're really looking at targeting a certain group of people, I mean, where's the funding going to come from to get to provide what they need to be able to access their school? And that's more of I see that more as a district issue, but I don't see marketing as necessarily solving that problem.
So what I want to do, and it's not that I want to close anybody's discussion down, but because we're moving from clarification questions to a discussion, we need to hold this during the discussion time, which has a spot on the agenda. It's been placed under new business. So please don't lose your questions and responses to one another, because they are on the agenda. But I do want to make sure that we move through the agenda appropriately. And right now we're in the steering meeting updates. So I'm just going to move forward to Dan for his update on the financials.
Can you allow me to share, please?
Oh, I'm sorry. I didn't realize you couldn't. Hold on.
No worries.
You'd think I'd be an expert on Zoom already, right? Okay.
I don't know where it went. There we go. Okay, so as of right now, we'll keep it pretty simple, but I do want to point out before I forget, the Network for Good, so the Facebook monies finally came in, so $941 there, so that's good news. But in terms of our bottom line, this is our checking, this is our savings, and then we have another additional funds in our endowment, and we're looking at a total assets right now of $36,142 between the retail accounts and the endowment. We do have, where am I looking for that? I'm sorry, I'm all over the place here. Okay, scooching up here. I don't know what happened to my, I need to cancel these. That's why I can't see it. The actual line items here are probably important. We have paid out now all but $86 of the COVID expenditures that we had authorized under the budget. Why isn't this working? Here we go. Now you can see this. Sorry. With the payment that I actually sent out today, we are at $86 over that. This is our variance, so we are still under budget. We do have some things that we need to probably figure out. I know Paige was looking for a number for her dollars, and I think we can bring that up in discussion, but I'm sorry, I'm distracted. There's a chat here. I'm trying to. Oh yes, Derek, that's next on my agenda. We have made a decision. We've received a number of requests for proposal. Of them, We received them from Associated Bank, Nicolay Bank, Thrivent Credit Union, Community First, and one other one. I don't remember who it was, but bottom line, we're going to go with Nicolay. They had the best proposal. Now I'm recommending that we don't make that move until July 1st, only because we are going to be switching treasurers. So my treasurer duties technically go through the June 30th through the fiscal year. And then the new treasurer will take over. And at that point, we will take me off. We don't have to take me off. In other words, we'll close the Wells Fargo account that we're currently using, and we'll open the new account with Sarah as the president and our new treasurer. So that's the plan right now. Thrivent offered a little bit more competitive interest rate on the money market, but overall their fees for some of the services that we utilize, which aren't many, but we do utilize bill pay and things like that, were higher. So in the end, Nicolay came out ahead, and frankly, they put a lot more work into the proposal. So, and they were able to provide me references that I did contact, and they were all very happy. So other nonprofits. The other thing I wanted to discuss was Network for Good. I talked about the check. I did contact them and ask why it's taking like 7 months to get the money from Facebook. And they're saying if we go and sign up for their EFT, which we'll do once we get the new bank account set up, we get the funds immediately. So I think we're going to go ahead and do that. And then finally, I will put those, going back to the proposals we did receive, and I'm going to try to get Matt to help me, because no matter what I do, I can't seem to upload anything to the A.P.M.A. treasurer folder within the Google Drive. But we can scan those in and upload those, so that any of you that want to peruse them are certainly welcome to do that between now and July. That is what I have. Questions for me right now?
I have a question, Dan.
Yeah.
I have not heard from Tom's or Hyde Music regarding those fundraisers, and I'm wondering if we've received any funds from either of those.
We have not. Jenny emailed me and asked about a check for something I hadn't heard of before. And she asked, did it come to me? I said, well, if it's made out to A.P.M.A, yes. That could be one or the other. But other than that, no, we haven't received anything.
Okay, thank you. I just needed to know if I needed
Yep.
to reach back out.
I was just curious too. I don't know if I've ever noticed you saying anything about it. Do we have a certain amount from Amazon Prime? Because
Yep.
I was just curious what that is.
Sure.
Thank you.
Yeah. So our revenue from Amazon Prime is, or Amazon Smile is right here. To date this year, we've made, make sure I'm in the right year here. Yes. So to date, we've made $238 off of them. And then you can see the $33 off the Square One art. Other questions?
All right, Sarah, steering committee is done.
All right, if there's no other questions, we're going to move on to the teacher advisory report. I believe they are both gone. Cassie, do you happen to have the report for them?
No, there's no report tonight.
Okay, we'll move on to committee updates. Community committee, you have the floor.
Yes, we'll be working on the Discord. It's pretty much ready to go. I recommend I can send out another link to get in there if you're not already in there. I highly recommend getting in and just checking it out. We'll probably figure out when we want to get things rolling with that. And then teacher appreciation is coming up. I am seeking people to provide food and things throughout the week, and also a gift basket for each of the staff members as well. So we already got some really great things going in there, but obviously more are welcome. And we'll be also the Sunday before Teacher Appreciation Week, we'll also be doing some decorating at the school. So Cassie's going to help us get in there and do that. So it's all on Sign Up Genius. It's all in there. I'm going to start bothering the Facebook group a lot. So
Diversity?
Just a couple of updates. One is that we did contact Cassie about possible end of the year activities. We were thinking of maybe doing another mini geocache event, since that was very well received and people seem to enjoy it. But we're just kind of waiting to see what can or cannot happen at the end of the year. So we'll be talking more about that. And then, yeah, that's our big update.
Thank you, Diversity. E&E?
We don't have anything new right now.
Thank you. Facilities?
So I'm not sure if you guys want me to share my screen or not. I had sent an email out to everybody. If you didn't get it yesterday, I'm sorry, I may not have had you on my list, but we're working on a few things. The redesign of the front office area for Jenny, also some outdoor shade that the teachers had requested, some shade areas for outdoor learning. And then Sarah Chisholm's with us today. Her and Miss Strand had met and they talked about the outdoor garden. So there's some information there. So I'm not sure if you guys want me to kind of walk you through some stuff.
Well, Paige, we don't really have time for a walkthrough, but I think that like at least a screen share of the awesome picture would be amazing. Okay. So
share, if you want to let me share my screen.
You should be good to go.
Okay. All right. Okay, so anyway, these are, let me go into here quick. Well, I can just go through this way, I guess. So here are just some images of the front desk area. So, I mean, conceptually, it's, you know, I was going off of the green and blue that's in the, you know, the, our logo. But anyway, all these finishes can kind of change, but essentially she needs storage, and that's kind of what I'm proposing here. This is all, my computer's going to freak out, I guess. But you know, we've got a ton of storage back here, so all that stuff can be hidden. You know, she's got some, you know, pegboards where we can hang, you know, they've got some coats there that they're kind of high vis sort of stuff. So essentially that's kind of what we're looking at. Maybe some new benches here. They've got artwork of the kids up. Anyway, so like I said, some of these finishes can change. We're not married to these, but you know, just to kind of have it fun and welcoming when you come into the space. I guess I have a couple questions. I know that I've got the go ahead to do this, but I'm in the process right now of trying to price out, you know, what cabinetry is going to cost, any wall murals, countertops, that kind of stuff. I have a couple emails out to that Tiana had provided me with some contractors who are affiliated with our A.P.M. community. I have not heard back from them. So, you know, as far as like budget, I don't really know. I can figure out like what the, you know, what the cost of the materials will be. But as far as if we have to pay someone to do it, like, you know, we paid $7,000 for that ridiculous sandbox. I don't want to have to go down that road. if we can have like people volunteer to do that. So anyway, I know we've got some money set aside for Jenny's space. I'm guessing I would have to come to the board with a budget and have that approved, correct?
If for Jenny's space, your budget is clear. Because it was cleared already through vote. If you need to go over budget, if it's under $500, you can go to the steering committee. If it's over $500, you will have to go to the board to request more funds.
I think it will. So, I mean, I think I originally was just going to do Jenny's sort of hodgepodge, and Cassie was like, just go for it. That's why it'll be more than, I think we had allotted maybe a couple grand for her space. So it'll be more than that. I don't know how much. And like I said, it all depends on if we've got someone to do it for free, or at least at a considerably reduced cost. So I guess, like I said, I'll work on putting a budget together for that. And then the other thing we were going to do was the outdoor kind of pergola sort of stuff. I don't know if I can show you guys, if you let me share my screen real quick. I'll just show you like a little PDF I put together. Let me go into here. So this was something, you guys should have all received this, but my thought was to, these first top 3 images show just, we need someone to build a base, essentially like a deck out there. And we talked about maybe doing 2, so there could be 2 different areas, so different classrooms could be out there. So approximately maybe 10 by 15, depending on the size of the pergola. And then here I've got some that I had sourced online. You know, they're metal pergolas, and then the canopy could be retracted. So just some thoughts. And once again, I'll have to, you know, those run anywhere. I mean, I would say 1,000 to 1,500 for the pergola itself. Now that doesn't include, like I said, the materials for making the deck or for anybody who's going to build it. So labor. But anyway, that's just a couple things that we're working on. And then I don't know if Sarah wants to talk real quickly about, Sarah Chisholm, you still with us?
I am here.
Okay, so here's your, I pulled this up. Here's your report that you and Miss Strand had created.
Thank you, Paige, and thank you everyone for your work. Just super briefly, something that Miss Strand and I talked about that would work really nicely with the pergola would be, there was a natural loom that she had suggested, and I know something that was also shared with Miss Rachel, and it's just sort of an art activity that can build off of it, but then also create shade. So that's all I just wanted to share real quick.
Here, that's a picture of the natural loom you're talking about, right?
I see part of it. Sorry, I'm on my phone right now, so I can't see the whole photo.
But it could be incorporated. Yeah, my computer's sort of freaking out right now, but it could be incorporated with the pergola. So anyway, those are the things we're working on. We're going to need some money. We need some help. Like I said, I haven't, you know, sometimes it's hard to get contractors to respond. So I'd love to have all this stuff done next week. But you know, the reality is it's tough to kind of get people to commit, especially if they're not getting paid for it. So anyway, we'll keep along.
Another reason why we need a resources chair for the upcoming year, because we have some cool ideas that need to be put in the ground, but it takes money to do that.
Thank you.
Thanks, Paige. So I'll give the update for Resources Committee really briefly. For the silent auction, we have chosen Galabid as our auction site. It is a auction site that still provides the ability to bid online, both with your cell phone and with your computer. No app is required. The platform is entirely free. They do ask for an in-kind donation at the end if you are feeling gracious, which of course I will be sure to be gracious and give them a little donation when we are all done. However, I will say that we are in need of some large donation items. So if anybody knows any companies, any individuals that are willing to donate some larger items towards our auction, that would be great. Oh, I see Derek has a question.
Well, I was just going to let you know that in my car today, Nicolay gave us a signed Jerry Kramer, which he was, a Packer, from the Lombardi era, but he signed it after he went into the Hall of Fame. So it's a signed Hall of Fame induction jersey. So all framed.
That is amazing, Derek. Thank you. Thank you. I'll be reaching out to you for a picture to add that to the bid site. Thank you. That's great. There's a large item right there. So moving right along with that, and then I do have to provide an update on the Kona Ice fundraiser. It's seeming more and more that due to our restrictions for gathering, we are not likely to be able to have the Kona Ice fundraiser this year. I had high hopes for it, but I think that we just need to move in a different direction or maybe table that for next year.
Derek, is your car in the garage?
Actually, no, I'm parked outside because we were finishing the basement.
Great. Can you please put it in the, can you bring the jersey in tonight? Thank you. I was joking.
You were joking until you found out that it wasn't in the garage.
Right.
Dan, I
will
thought you
also
meant to
say,
steal it.
A big shout out too also to Sarah Chisholm, because she reached out to the Green Bay Packers and they also provided a signed football that is sitting with Jenny right now. So thank you to both Derek and Sarah for their work on obtaining donations. I appreciate it.
Jenny thinks it's more safe in my office drawer. So
I think that's pretty safe. So we are right up against the timeline, so I will move on to volunteer needs. Basically, we have lots of openings yet for co-chairs. Resources Committee is in need of a chair, and I'm not sure if any other committees are in need of volunteers, but it sounds like Community Committee is in need of volunteers for Teacher Appreciation Week. Stephanie, do you have anything to add to that?
No, start soliciting your friends and ask them to be on the board.
All right, and we'll move on to new business with back to the diversity within marketing strategy. I will warn everyone that we are, I believe, 5 minutes, correct me if I'm wrong, Stephanie, to the end of the board meeting. And so if we go past that, we'll need to have a motion to extend the meeting.
Correct.
I think from diversity, I think just if we could have this put on the agenda for next time to have a more full discussion about it, so we can, and I think one thing I was going to ask was about if someone from our committee could be part of the group that is working on the marketing stuff, or how, I don't know if that's the steering committee or if there's a separate group, or if it's an individual thing, I don't know. But if there's a group of people working on that, it might be worth having someone from diversity on that.
I think the game plan would be, I think that's a great idea, because next month, hopefully that's my last board meeting. That right now it's Cassie and myself is the task force. We asked for extra volunteers, but nobody reached out. So it was just the two of us that tackled this. So I think, to me, a really good game plan is to have the president and CEO of Red Shoe Marketing come in, present their plan, hear from the task force itself, and then I think when this open discussion with the new board can really start, right? You guys can say, nope, we're not going down this road, or we like this, but not that, because again, that's why I did not want to have this voted on today by this board and have it, have our commitments being fulfilled by the new board.
Yeah, that makes sense. I mentioned having someone from diversity involved too, because I think there's opportunities, whether we do it on our own or we make a professional marketing person aware of, there's things like MLK Junior Day, and we've done partnerships with other charter schools, ABS for one. We're working on some things with BNS as well. So there's other opportunities there that maybe everyone's not already aware of, and that we've already kind of started moving. So.
Oh, I think that makes a lot of sense. Plus, we'll have an opening.
Perfect. And James, I think you had mentioned you might have some interest in working on that. So.
Yeah, definitely. So thanks.
Do we need to make a motion to add it to the agenda, or do we just add it to the agenda for next meeting?
Well,
we can add it through steering.
Is there a plan? I mean, is there a date when Red Shoe is supposed to be doing a presentation, or is that already?
Yeah, so through last steering committee, we had Matt go ahead and put that on the agenda for next month full board to have, which I think is the 20th, if I remember right. So then that's when what we told the CEO of Red Shoe to be prepared to join that meeting. Now, she also offered to meet with us because we had dealt with, I think, a original, maybe like a BDO or a business development officer at first. And then now, like I said, it'll be the president that'll come in to do that presentation. And she offered to go ahead and meet with us before that meeting. So if that does occur, I can go ahead and reach out to diversity to see if anybody wants to be a part of that meeting.
Okay.
So as far as them presenting at the next meeting, are we planning to vote on having them move forward, or it's just a presentation and then for future discussion, the board can talk about it?
I would more than likely assume that it would be allowing you guys to have, hear the presentation, hear the task force recommendation, but then allow you to digest that information, because to make a decision on the spot.
And also, I think that there should be time where after they present, we as a board, well, I won't be on the board, but that you guys can privately talk about it instead of, in front of them. Certainly you want them there to answer questions. And, are they prepared to present costs of things right at that meeting as well? I only say this because I'm super cheap. Ask my husband, I'm the cheapest person you will ever meet. But, so as far as like funds, I've got as facilities, I want some of our funds to be greedy and, kept for Jenny or whatever we're doing outside. So that's my only thing as far as funds and budget and costs, that kind of stuff.
So what I would suggest is that, Derek, you go back and make sure that the proposal that you and the task force got when you did your request for proposal is the one that they will be presenting on. And then prior to the meeting, that would be part of the board documents, would be the full proposal, so that the new board could have the proposal in front of them and then have the presentation, and then would be put on another board meeting for vote.
And just so you know that the proposal that they gave ranked those phases and had dollar amounts for each phase. So you could see, oh, we want to do this, but we won't want to, we don't want to do that, or that's too expensive, right? So you'll have that information beforehand.
Okay.
Any further discussion on the new business? Because we unfortunately will have to make an amendment to extend the meeting if that's the case.
No, other than it's now in my garage, Dan. Is that acceptable? Here you go.
Bonus points for pictures, so I can add.
Yeah,
that.
can we see it again?
Yeah. Well, here, I'll just talk, so then that way it stays there. But then, yeah.
Very nice.
Oh, you can't quite see, but yeah.
That's pretty sweet.
It is nice.
Can we, I assume we can put a, I forget what it's called, but a minimum bid requirement?
There are minimum bid requirements on the items that I've added so far, yes.
Awesome.
And if anybody's willing to let me bounce off ideas for minimum bids, I'd be happy to have a partner in crime for that. I've already been grilling a few people, so.
But I told her, I told her she was grilling the wrong person. She was asking me all these questions about football. And I was like, Sarah, I have no idea. Like, I know what a football is, you know, like, anyway. Before we adjourn, can I just make sure that we say a large thank you to every person who served on the board this year. Those who are stepping down, those who are moving to other positions, those who are staying on in same positions. I just have to say thank you so very much. Your volunteer hours have been huge and they have been noticed and recognized. And I thank you so very much. And I'm so grateful to have been able to work with you all this year. I am stepping down formally from the president position at the end of this meeting into the past president role. And so I'm happy to be able to give this over to Sarah. And I can't wait to see what the new board, so welcome new board members. Thank you so much for stepping into a role and for doing volunteer service already, for joining the board. And I can't wait to see what the next year and the next board does for this wonderful community. Thank you so much.
I just want to echo that and say thank you, Stephanie, for all of your service that you've given, not just this year, but also in past years. And I just want to personally thank you for walking me through every single meeting for the last few months, and in the support that I know that you'll be there for in the future. So thank you for your service. At this time, I'd like to ask if we have a motion to adjourn. All right, Stephanie, do I have a second? Thank you, Paige.
I'll second. Oh.
All right, thanks, guys. Meeting's adjourned. Bye.